Presets have been in After Effects since version CS5, if not before. I personally think some of them are very useful, and you should consider using them. In this section, we will explore a few presets in the behavior and image creative categories. You will learn how to use the drift and rotate over time presets and discover how to create some nice animation, but most importantly, how to create scroll news text. You will also learn how to design and create your own presets, how to save them in the special After Effects User Presets folder, and how to use them in all your projects. So in the next lecture, we start exploring some useful presets. As part of the useful and practical presets that you can use immediately without any keyframes, I'm going to show you the drift over time. And it's very interesting because you can create some kind of scrolling text here and many other things. So how does drift over time works? If you want to follow along with me, please open the project file animation presets-start.aep. Okay, we can be working together. Let's open now the drift over time test. So over here I have just a rectangle in the middle of the composition, and the anchor point of the layer is also in the middle of the comp. Let's go and bring the drift over time preset. If you come to animation presets over here and you go to behavior, you will have here drift over time. It's a very interesting preset, and with some creativity you can really create some awesome animations here. I will click and drag, drop it over the rectangle. And if you press spacebar, you will notice that the rectangle started to drift over time. There are no keyframes, nothing. If you press U, there is absolutely nothing. Let's have a look at the effect controls for the drift over time. The preset itself is drift over time. And then you have the transform effect, which is, if you notice, in between brackets, meaning that it's dependent on drift over time. You really don't have to do any changes here to have a good drift, but yet you can play with the position or the anchor point or wherever you like. So let's go to the properties of drift over time. First of all, you have the direction, and this is the direction here, 135 degrees. If you put it, for example, to 0, you will notice now it's going to start drifting vertically. If you put it to 90 degrees, it's going to start drifting, of course, from left to right. If you put it at minus 90, you guessed it, now it's going to be from right to left. Here you are. Pretty interesting. That's how the text was scrolling. Then you have here the speed. Let's say you put the speed at 250, just to exaggerate and show you. Here you are. It's going at a certain speed. Now the drift here is happening using the position of the transform. Let's open the layer and go to the effect itself and open the transform also. And you notice here in position you have a very big expression. It's a very interesting code here. You can't care less what's written inside truly. All you want to do is to use the preset itself. So now let's put off the rectangle here and put on the text. Okay, I select the text. So I have a very long text here. It's a point text, it's not paragraph. And I will apply drift over time. So if I want my text, to come from outside, for example, all I have to do is to change the direction. So I'll make it minus 90 like we have seen. And let's put the speed at 100, for example. If you play, here you are, the text is drifting. Notice, due to the transform, you are animating the content of the layer, not the layer itself. The layer is still at the same position. It's only the content that is moving. This is the effect transform. Now, a nice application will be to do the drift over time on the text. You notice here the text, we have a text layer, it has the drift over time, direction is minus 90, speed is 100, and then I added something small, is just a track matte. If you notice I have track matte here, alpha matte, on the text layer. And this is the track matte. If you want to see it, it's very easy, just over here, and the text will come from the left to the right and go through time. So actually it's very easy to use drift over time if it is for motion graphics or for text. Now this is your first preset, and I will really appreciate if you go to After Effects and start playing with this preset drift over time and create some motion graphics or something like this. I hope, guys, your interest in preset is growing, just a bit maybe. But it's important that you start getting interested and, explore all these presets. Not all of them. Some of them are totally useless and very old. But some of them are still very useful. I hope that after you went through the drift over time, you opened After Effects and you tried it and created some useful animation. Don't worry, presets is not like you're going to use them every now and then in your animation, but they will be handy if you train on them a bit and keep them in your mind. You know that you can use them. For this lecture, please open the Rotate Over Time composition. And here I used the preset Rotate Over Time. Just created a square over here, clicked on Rotate Over Time, dropped it on the square, and I have this animation. As simple as this. Let's go to the FX controls. You notice here there is only one single property to take care of. This is the degrees per second. And then I set it to plus 90, meaning it's going to move 90 degrees per second. I think so at least. Nevertheless, it rotates. And there is the transform effect here. And you notice the anchor point and the position are driven by expressions where they are set in the middle of the composition itself. Then what do you do here? When you create your shape, just move it to this side. Okay, as simple as this. And you start rotating. Okay. And that's it. Then what I've done is I will undo these two. Okay. I created another 3 squares by duplicating the original one. Then when you play, you have a very nice animation here. See, the first one comes in, then the second one, and so on. And they keep on rotating for the duration of the composition. Now, this can be very useful in certain animations that you want to do, mainly in logo creation, where you want to create a logo and keep it in the corner and keep it, moving or rotating or even drifting over time, something like this. So they are important, and you notice there is not a single keyframe here. Okay, this is the beauty of all this. I did another one here just to show you. It is the dotted. I'll put it on, and you've played. You have a dotted circle here, and it's rotating. The circle is just a circle, and if you come to contents, inside ellipse, inside the stroke, I have added the dashes. I made it round cap, added the dashes, put them at 0, and the gap is 26.5, and it's rotating using rotate over time. So easy. The rotate over time could be very useful if you remember to use it. Okay, guys, this is important. Notice also the simplicity. If I go back and I created one for you that is the sun, and it's pretty interesting. You have a polystar that has many sides, of course, and it plays, just rotates, counterclockwise. I will deselect. Cool. What you can do with that is some interesting effect here. If you use the blur, and I'm going to use the fastbox blur, here it is, drop it on the shape itself. Let's take it over here. And give it a blur radius, for example, 30. Okay, not much. And instead of doing it horizontal and vertical, I'm going to do it only horizontal. Notice the effect here. It's pretty cool. So you play with colors and you composite on videos and so on. It's a simple example, but the applications could be quite nice. Now, this is about the rotate over time, and I hope you remember it, you try it, you do some animation, upload it to YouTube, and show me how creative you can be. In this lecture, I will introduce you to very important, very practical, and very useful presets. Anytime you want to do a video transition using the fade in or fade out, please jump and use these presets. Do not start creating keyframes on the opacity here to create a fade in or a fade out. You can use these presets, and they are extremely practical to use. Let's try the fade in over layer below. So the top layer is going to fade in over the layer below. So actually, they should be like this. So the top layer is going to come into appearance, fade in over the below layer here. Let's take the preset and drop it on top of the layer itself. Now, notice here we have only one effect, is the solid composite. The solid composite is very easy. The source opacity here is about the opacity of the layer. The color and the opacity here is about a solid layer that you can use. We'll see some examples later on. And there is the blending mode of the solid layer, which is white here, with the source layer, which is the video in our case here. Now, let's focus on the source opacity only. If you play now, you notice what's happening here. It's already fading in the top layer, so it's bringing it in appearance. Here you are. I'm going to play it now. You know, it's fading in very nicely. Now you'll tell me, okay, why I'm using this preset? I can put my keyframes here and so on. Yes, you're right. But there is something more important. You notice there is this overlap. And if you have keyframes and you change the overlap, then you have to come and change the keyframes, right? Most of the time we forget to do that, or most of the time we get tired of doing that because we don't know exactly where we are starting and so on. But with this preset, whatever the overlap is, it will work from the in point of the top layer to the out point of the bottom layer. Let's play and see. Notice how it's going slowly and it's taking its time. Now it's 2 seconds and something, and it will fade in. It's not in real time, but you get the picture. In fact, it's better. Let's play it again. You notice the fade in is happening. If you change the overlap now, the fade in timing also is still working from the in point of the top layer to the out point of the bottom layer. You can see it. It's very cool. Not only that, let's say you decide that you don't want your video to start from here. You want to click and drag in the in point, and this guy also you want to click and drag in the out point and overlap them just with a little here. Notice now when you play, it's going to still work the same from the in point to the out point, and you have your transition. Okay, it's so easy. There is here, of course, an expression that is used, which is pretty heavy, by the way. But if you are good in expression and JavaScript, you will notice that it's very easy. It uses the in point, the out point, the index of the layer, that is the number of the layer over here, and it returns 100 or it catches an error, something like this. But it's actually, you don't care about the expression. It's working and it's working fine. There is even more interesting this fade in or out with frames. I will delete this one and return the in points and out points for both layers. Okay, and just put them something like this. Now I want to use the fade in plus out frames. I'll click on it and drag it and put it on top. Of course, here I'm going to use the fade in. So the top layer is going to fade in existence or in view. Notice the preset a bit here. First of all, you have the preset itself, which is in a form of an effect. It has fade in duration or fade out duration, not both of them, of course. And you have the solid composite with the source opacity that has an expression. The fade in duration here is in frames. If you say, for example, 15 frames, so let's come to the in point, and if you add 15 frames, okay, it will jump. Notice it's already over the fade in. It's fading in for 15 frames. That's it. If you decide now I want to make it 30 frames, now again it works from the in point to plus 30 frames. Nothing to do with the out point of the bottom layer. So the fade in is restricted to 30 frames. Extremely useful when you're doing some sensitive animations, and it's not just about fading in. You want the exact number of frames. Very useful. Another one that you can use, I will come over here, and to remove all the presets, you can use Effect and Remove All. It will remove all the effects from the effect controls. If you click on it, they're all gone. I usually use the shortcut Control-Shift-E or Command-Shift-E on the Mac. Let's take now the fade in millisecond. That will be interesting, and drop it on the top layer. Now it gets extremely sensitive where it says how many milliseconds you want. 500 milliseconds will be half a second. If I put it at 1000, it will be 1 second. Let's go and see. If I come to the in point here, add 1 second plus 100 and press enter. Here is the 1 second. Notice the fading is just 1000 millisecond or 1 second. So it's pretty useful to do that. Control-Shift-E to remove them, and let's explore the last one, which is fade out over layer below. Fade out over the layer below, of course you need the layer that is fading out to be on top of the layer that is fading in somehow. If you click and drag and drop it over here, notice what's happening here. It's fading out totally. Okay, so it depends on what you're working and which layer you want to put, on top. Now, I prefer to use always the fade out and the fade in. Forget about fade in frames. I'm never so meticulous when it comes to fade in. Now, if you reduce the overlap, the fade out will still work as the fade in. Now, these are very useful presets. You notice, guys, I'm sure you have noticed already. If it's fade in, fade out, use these presets. If you want to add more, you can come over and add other effects if you like and keyframe them. That will be also pretty cool. I hope I was not very speedy. And I recommend for you to come and use these 4 presets here so your videos and your work will get speedier, shorter, and you look like a pro. Maybe in the previous lecture you noticed I had here some transition presets. I wanted to show you about transitions, but I changed my mind. I prefer to give you something about the image creative presets that I use from time to time, and they're pretty nice. Open with me the colorize composition here. We have 3 videos, one after the other. In the animation presets, scroll down image creative. Here you are. In the image creative here, you will find lots of colorize presets. Some of them are very interesting. Actually, all of them, depending on how you use them. Let's start with one that I like the most, is the moon shadows. Now, you remember on YouTube, you have all these guys giving you some lectures, I don't know what, about how to turn a video from day to night. Actually, colorize moon shadows is exactly what it does. Notice the word moon shadows. So instead of sun shadows, it's going to give you moon shadows. Let's click on the preset itself and drop it over the video. Here you are. You changed day into night. But also you can come over and play with the effect controls. For example, you can reduce the opacity. I will go slowly and notice how the opacity is being reduced. Hence, also the night level is being reduced. So you can create an animation starting from here, for example, this is daylight, and going down to 50% or even more to nightlight. I will undo that, put it back to 50%. There is also the master hue you can play with. If you twirl it, it's just going to rotate among colors. So now you have a kind of purple night, a red night, and so on the way you would like. You are really choosing, the nights and the colors through the hue. The option here, colorize, is also very interesting. If you check it, the colors are going to change in the beginning, but you have the colorize hue. If you start taking it down or up the way you would like, you will cycle among colors. Here you are. So now we're back to night. If you go to negative values, it will also cycle. So you're back here with a lighter night. And this effect here is pretty cool. Of course, you need to tweak it a bit to work on it and so on. But the colorize moon shadows will immediately give you the effect of changing from day to night. Let's go to the next video here. For this video, I want to show you the sunset gradient. The sunset gradient is also very interesting. Notice how we have created a kind of sunset. It starts with kind of blue, purple, going up, and these are the 2 colors that it's using. So you can come over here and start playing with the colors to change the sunset. You notice it has become a sunset. Unfortunately, in the video, this is extremely bright here. You can work on it, make it dimmer. So I will change the color, for example, from this color to more reddish, whatever you like. You have to stay in the red to give it this kind of sunset. You can come over here to this kind of reds. Now we are mainly on the purple. Okay, so actually you can come and play with it and changing the way you would like. Already it's giving us a very nice effect. This is without the effect itself, and this with the effect. Don't worry about calculations. Calculations has really lots of work in very many effects. Nevertheless, it does certain calculation. It's actually a blending system for 2 layers. So you're taking the ramp layer that you put on top and the video itself, and you blend them through calculation. The last one I want to show you here that I like very much is the sepia. If you click and drag and drop it, well, I love this kind of colors. I love this kind of old movie style. And also you can come and adjust it, and it's very easy. You have the fill and you have the tint. You can reduce, for example, the sepia colors or increase. Usually I do increase it like this. I like it. Or you come to the tint. Notice what's happening here. They mapped all the blacks to blacks and all the whites to this color. Now, if you change this color, that's what's going to happen to the video. Here you are. Okay, you notice it's going in intensity. This is black. Now it's a bit brighter. So you can come over and play with these two colors. Also, you can come over and play with the opacity, make it like really old and the movie is old, things like this. So it's pretty interesting to use the colorize effects. I think in the next lecture, we are going to do the inset video, and it will be very interesting. I'll show you how to work with the inset. Okay guys, in this lecture, you are going to work with the inset video. Please open the composition inset video. It has 3 videos, one on top of each other. Let's look at the preset that is inset video. You have 2 of them. You have inset video framed and inset video tone edge. Let's try the first one. I'll click on it, drag it, and drop it on the video that is on top. Notice exactly what happened. First of all, you have a lot of presets here. Then, the video itself, it became an inset, a picture-in-picture if you like, which is very interesting. You haven't done much. You can also make it bigger and smaller if you like. It will not distort the video. The video quality will remain because the video is 1280 by 720. I will undo this. Let's look a bit at the preset that I have added. I will just twirl them all up. They are all selected. You notice here you have the Vegas frame. You can put it off if you don't want a frame. Okay? You can also put off the bevel if you don't want a beveling. You also can put off the drop shadow if you don't want any drop shadow. Still, it's very useful because it has cropped your video using the crop over here. Is a transition somehow that they fixed at 5%. I will return the 3 of them. And if you come to the Vegas frame here, there are several properties here you can play with. For example, if you reduce the opacity, the start opacity, notice what's going to happen. You are going to start seeing some kind of dashes here. Then you can come over here and reduce the number of, segment. One segment is everything, or you can have more segments. So you have kind of small dashes. If you like that, guys, I'm just showing you here. I'm very happy with the border itself. I always use it this way. Fine, this is about the Vegas. You can come over here, play with it, see exactly what you like. The bevel alpha here will not be very significant, except if you remove the frame itself, you can see the beveling here is very small. You can actually change the angle. You notice how the angle of the beveling, which is an inner beveling, is changing. But you don't want to play with it. It's okay the way it is if you want beveling. The drop shadow becomes interesting, and I'm sure you are aware of it. You can increase the opacity or decrease it the way you would like. You can change the direction of the shadow. Okay, there are nice parameters here that you can play with. Let's look at the tone edge. It's exactly the same, but the edges will be toned. I'm going to put it on this video, the one you're seeing, and the edges here are torn. You have some kind of, like it's a paper, tone paper, something like this. Now, you can also remove the roughness of the edges that become straight, and you can remove the shadow. Still, you have something that you can use. If from time to time you need to create an inset, don't bother with the scale and stories like this. Just come over and use the inset. I use that many times if I want to have insets or picture-in-picture. Okay, guys, this was about the inset. My main aim here is to bring it to your attention. Mind you that this effect also can work on pre-compositions, and you can put a small animation here while the other one is working its way. In this lecture, guys, I'm going to show you how to create your own presets and then save them and then reuse them. It's a very easy process in After Effects, and it's a very useful process if you have a project to do and you want to create a preset, then reuse it all over the project or maybe projects. I know some people specialize in creating presets and then they offer them for sale. That could be a nice business if you like to, of course. Let's start. Please open with me the preset video trial. It has 2 videos here. What you want to do is to create a transition here, an in transition for this video, and use it on the other videos later on. So we want to create it and then save it and then reuse it. And let's see how is the process. I will start here by adding the first effect. I need a control. I cannot possibly keyframe every single effect I will put there. So I will use a control and I will keyframe the control and then pick whip, as you know, and as we have studied in the expressions. So I will write here control. And you see you have the slider control. Click on it, drag it and drop it on the layer. By the way, to create a preset, it has to be applied on a layer, then you can save it. So my slider here is just a slider. It can go from 0 to 100, but actually it can go to any value you want, you notice. And I'm gonna start keyframing it. I will keyframe the slider at 0, come after 1 second only, and keyframe it at 100. As simple as this. Let's now get another effect because the slider doesn't do anything. I will go for the transform effect, and this is a very simple effect and it has been sped up by Adobe. I'll click on it and drop it also on the layer. So if you come to the scale here, you have scale height and scale width. I don't want to scale on the height. I want to scale on the width. So I will come to uniform scale here and uncheck it. So now I have scale height and width. I will come to scale width and just press Alt or Option on the Mac and press on the stopwatch to bring in the expression. I just pick whip the scale width to the slider, as simple as this. Here you are. Click out, everything is fine. Notice the animation goes from 0 to 100. Let's add another effect here, it should be nice. I will add a blur effect. There is the simple blur here, which is fastbox blur or directional blur. I will use fastbox blur, which also is a sped up effect. So I'll click and drag and drop it on the effect controls over here. I need the blur radius to go from a certain value, like it's blurring, then go to 0 at the end. I will do the same here. I will just press on Alt or Option on the Mac, click on the stopwatch, and then I have here the expression. I will pick the expression to the slider control. Now we click out, not exactly what we want. So the blur is going from 0 to 100, not what we want. So what we're gonna do is to inverse a bit and say from 100 minus, okay, the effect. It's gonna go from 0, it will be 100, and when it's 100, it's 0. Give us a nice effect, which is a bit tasking on your processor. Maybe the blur is pretty heavy. Here you are, but you have a nice animation, not bad at all. We can also press U for the keyframes, select them, and press F9 to ease them. Come to the graph and adjust it the way you would like, for example, just something like this. Let's see our animation. Not bad. So now we have our preset here, or we have a series of effects, that is the slider control, the transform, and the fastbox blur inside the effects. Now you want to save this because you want to replicate it for the next video. And this is the kind of transition you want to use on all your videos. Fine, how do I do that? Well, let's uncheck this one. Let's select the effects here. And in Effects and Preset, you have a small button here. It says Create New Animation Preset. And also, if you come to Animation, you have Save Animation Preset. You can use any of them. I will go for Save Animation Preset on the menu here. It's just open. Now, notice what's very interesting here. There is a special folder for After Effects to save the user preset. This folder is under Documents, Adobe After Effects CC 2018, because I have many versions of After Effects on my PC, and User Preset. So let's give it a name now. So I called it Scale and Blur. Fine. I will save. As simple as this. Now, after saving, if you come to the animation presets here, you notice you have your presets, that is the preset that were there before. And in addition to that, you have now user presets. These are your presets. And here is my preset. It's an animation preset. It's saved over here. So actually now I can use it anywhere I like. Let's come to this layer. We go to the in point, select your preset, click and drag, and just drop it on the layer. You have to be careful where the timeline indicator is. I put it in the in point of the layer because the preset you have created has keyframes. If you press U, you can see the keyframes, and if you twirl down the effect here, you can see you have the slider control, transform, box blur. If you play, here you are. The other video is coming in and is scaling up with the blurs fading away. So it's pretty easy to create a preset and save it and use it on all your projects, in fact. Notice that this is not only in this file. Every time I will open After Effects, I will have user preset, scale and blur. Let's say now you created a preset, you have your user preset folder, and you have inside scale and blur. You don't want to use scale and blur. You want to remove the user presets from here. How do you do it? The best way to do it is to go to your file manager. I bring it in over here. It's on my second screen. Now you go to Documents, Adobe, After Effects CC, User Preset, and simply delete this preset. Here you are. I deleted it. Fine. Let's go back to After Effects. It's still here. Now to clean it up, it's very easy. You click on the menu of the Effect and Preset panel and you say Refresh List. It has disappeared. There is no more user preset. So guys, to create a preset and to save it, it's very easy. And of course now I have deleted it because I don't want the course to have my personal presets there. It's not gonna be standard. Now I urge you to open After Effects, create a simple transition preset, create a sophisticated one, save it, and start your library. You know, it's going to be very useful later on when you go into very big projects or even medium projects. You will take your presets and use them speedy. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you in the next lecture.